Hello, today is Monday, September 8th. Welcome to episode 498 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast to get you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI Deputy Executive Director Martha Miller. I'm joined today by Senior Fellow Morgan Vina and Fellow Jessica Jones. Over the weekend, Russia launched its largest aerial assault since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, deploying more than 800 Shahed drones plus ballistic and cruise missiles, and for the first time hit Kyiv's Cabinet of Ministers building, along with attacks on residential areas, which unfortunately is a very common occurrence. President Trump said he's not happy and plans to speak with Vladimir Putin very soon. And there's hints of a phase 2 sanctions package focused on Russian oil revenues and possibly secondary penalties on buyers and facilitators. But no new measures have been formally announced. European leaders are coordinating with Washington on potential sanction steps and security guarantees for Ukraine, short of NATO membership. Over the weekend, President Trump's envoy, Keith Kellogg, argued that the weekend's assault shows Moscow is not seeking diplomacy. An assessment echoed by most analysts. Despite recent summits, there's no scheduled meeting between Putin and Zelensky. There is no ceasefire framework and no agreed upon enforcement mechanism. So lots of activity, but momentum seems stalled. So on that note, Morgan, how do you interpret the current situation? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on like the tactics and methods being used by Russia and tactics and methods from Washington.
Yeah, so look, if anything, Vladimir Putin feels emboldened here. The summit in Alaska clearly didn't produce any sort of agreement or viable next steps forward. And so Putin says, F it, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. The tactics here actually are interesting. They're actually very reminiscent of what we've seen Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran do in Israel, and that is just swarm and try to overwhelm air defenses. I think you mentioned about 800 drones combined with missiles, flying into Ukrainian territory, not just Kyiv, but elsewhere as well. And we've seen the Ukrainian air defenses really, make pretty good progress in shooting down the vast majority of those. I think reports indicate that only around 40 some made it through. But nevertheless, it wreaked havoc and devastation. I mean, we saw mass casualties. And so, one casualty is too many. And here, though, it just really demonstrates that Putin doesn't give a damn, and he's gonna keep going after the Ukrainians. In response, we saw Scott Bessent over the weekend, Treasury Secretary, talk about sanctions and increasing the sanctions and his belief that this will bring Putin to the table. This is actually also very reminiscent of when President Obama was trying to sanction Iran, thinking that he was able to bring Iran to the table. And Republicans criticized Obama that, sanctions are not a strategy, right? You can't sanction your way out of this. And I think here is actually very similar as well, is that sanctions are a tactic. They're not a strategy. They can help us move forward and help, achieve our desired aims. But we've got to come up with a bolder plan here. And I'm not really seeing that just yet. I was really hopeful. I wanted to give sort of the Trump administration some space to negotiate. But it's clear Putin doesn't care. He thumbed his nose at Trump, and we're continuing to see more of the same. And until the United States really does shut it down, and that is, not only work with our European allies to, give the Ukrainians the support they need in order to push back against Russia in a meaningful and effective way, I think we're just going to continue to see the status quo perpetuate.
So, Jess, we talked about the Putin-Xi meeting, last week, the big display of this kind of new axis of evil, convening in a very public manner. What's going on between China and Russia? What are Putin and Xi up to? Can you fill us in on what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, it's funny, listening to Morgan and discussing kind of the continuance of the status quo. And, there's some that argue that the targeting of government buildings in Ukraine is actually escalatory. Like we're actually maybe potentially entering a new phase. And so it's maybe not even the status quo, right? And we see, we've talked about this, we talk about the meeting in Beijing between Xi and Putin and others. And we, of course, have got President Trump meeting Putin in Alaska. That was 3 weeks ago. And, I wish Les was on the show this morning because I remember right after the summit, he said, okay, this is where President Trump, he can come down hard, right? We've had a moment of diplomacy. This is it though. This is where we have to show that there are real consequences after this meeting. And we're kind of seeing the opposite. We see this meeting in Beijing, there's so many photos of everyone smiling, having a good time. Also, really importantly, I think got a little less coverage was that China and Russia announced, a legally binding memorandum to build a new gas pipeline to increase, the export of Russian energy into China. It's another economic lifeline for Moscow. I mean, yes, there are lots of obstacles to actually completing the construction of the pipeline. It is not nowhere near the short term. We'll give them a short-term advantage, but that's a long-term play right there, right? That is an increasing political and economic ties between the two countries. It is on the back end of the meeting with President Trump, and it's not just a thumb in the face, right? I mean, that is a huge announcement that basically says, we don't care what pressure you're putting on us. We're going to do what we want to do, right? And so while our Secretary of Treasury did come out this weekend and talk about U.S. Europe needing to work together when it comes to economic pressure, when you see Russia finding lifelines with other countries, it's hard to see how successful we can be in that strategy. And, rather than, or in addition to talking to our allies like Europe and India, which also got a little bit of a tap on the nose from the Trump administration, actually coming, fully confronting the actual adversary in this conflict, which is Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And we see kind of, again, the backpedaling from President Trump, between the going to the U.S. Open and returning, where he stands with talking to Vladimir Putin. Like, it's going to happen. There's still room for negotiation, but it's clear that there's some pessimism that has set in to the White House. And whether it's sanctions, is Congress, to Morgan's point, is Congress moving, not moving? It's where is that going to actually get us as, Russia and China double down on their relationship as diplomacy seems to be faltering? When does the administration start to put some real pressure on Russia?
Also, yeah, just to follow up on what Jess said too, is that yes, Beijing seems to be extending this economic long-term lifeline to the Russians. We still have our European partners relying on Russian energy. Like, that is still a problem. How is this still a thing? Like, so we also need to hold our allies and partners' feet to the fire when it comes to their own enablement of Moscow.
So, the one thing that, there's this lingering question and issue of the, the territories that Putin is demanding in exchange for a peace deal. And to remind our audience, a ceasefire, of course, was kind of dropped as a goal. And any security guarantees are for a peace agreement, not a ceasefire. So Trump also had said that if Ukraine pursued or tried to gain more territory, fought for more territory, that we might cut off intelligence support again, which was done already under the Trump administration once. So what is the strategy? Is the strategy to just put more pressure on Ukraine to force them into giving up that land? And it's just a waiting game to see when the Ukrainians will give in?
Hope not. It seems like they're not going to give in. So,
right.
Yeah, I think as long as Zelensky's in office and alive, as long as his heart is still beating, I think he's in this fight until the very end. And frankly, I mean, I think the Ukrainians have learned to deal with, have almost been desensitized to it. When you have air sirens going off for 11 hours and you have to hunker down, they are definitely in a wartime mentality. And I think that they're able to sustain this because of support from the United States and Europe. At the same time, though, that support is enough to sustain them, but it's not enough to fully defeat their Russian aggressors.
Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking, looking back historically, when you have an aggressive power that is trying to acquire more land and use tactics that Putin is using. My view is that total defeat is really the only solution. But Ukraine is not really being given that option.
Well, it's like Morgan and Les like to say, punch a bully in the face.
Exactly.
Take those playground tactics.
Well, no, and I think it's interesting too. I mean, going back to news from last week, you saw, the Polish president come to town, and the United States has, 10,000 troops in Poland right now. We have a permanent army garrison there now. So I think Poland is feeling a little bit level of anxiety that, with all these sort of troop movement discussions throughout Europe, it's just like them, but not us, right? We good. Like, just to be clear here, like this doesn't affect us. And so I think it's pretty telling, right? And the Poles, first and foremost, I mean, their air defenses went up this weekend, right? And so they feel like they're on the front lines here, and so they have a lot at stake. And so I think continuing support for our European friends, especially those that are the most vulnerable, is also important.
Well, on that note, I think we will continue to watch the situation. Hopefully, we won't have a continuation of deja vu, but sadly, I think we probably will. But anyway, that's a wrap. Thanks to Taylor Lane, Kelly Crowley, Colette Jennings, and the NSI staff for help in producing today's episode. Join us Wednesday, September 10th for another episode of Fault Lines. And we'll have a special episode on Friday for our 500th episode. So we're also on YouTube, so check us out. If you like what you heard or saw, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe.